Let's say hello to John. He's in Pennsylvania. Hey, John.
Yo, Eddie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, I'm a since I was a little kid, loved Quiet Riot. Favorite childhood band, 12 years old, 83. So they're playing a club March 6th over in Jersey, right across from Philly. And $79 a ticket, mass capacity, 150 people, no original members. I want to throw up, man.
Wow. Where's the venue, John? What's the venue?
The venue is, hang on, just right over the bridge.
Like Cherry Hill, somewhere like around Cherry Hill area?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, Cherry Hill, Marlton. I should have had my better. So
John, have you ever been to the venue?
I have not. I've been to clubs all over the U.S. I haven't been to this one. It's called the Landis Theater, March 6th. $79 a ticket, Quiet Riot. And I just don't understand how. I mean, I know bands are trying to do what they can to make things work, but who gave them, other than maybe Frankie, who is running the band that, they can keep that going and, $79 a ticket, I don't know. I don't have it.
Well, John, John, look, as I say repeatedly with all of this stuff, you vote with your wallet, and thanks, John, for the call. If there's something that you don't like or you don't see or you're not down with, you just don't go. You just don't buy it. It's just really, really simple. And look, I appreciate John calling and anybody calling with their views. I have no problem with that. But I'm just saying, before you get too worked up about it or question it, if you don't like it, don't go. It's really simple, and it's going to change. And that goes for everything. If it's a concert that's too much money, if it's a VIP that's too much money, if it's a band's lineup that you don't like, if it's a venue you don't like that doesn't treat you right, whatever it is, just don't go. It's all you do. And just enough people don't go and something's going to change. Now, it sounds like John has two problems. John isn't down with Quiet Riot continuing with Frankie gone with essentially no original members. Now, Chuck Wright, if you want to get technical, although not original member, has been a part of Quiet Riot history and would be the I guess most senior guy, if you will, as part of that. So John's got a problem there, which again, that sadly isn't going to change. I mean, if Quiet Riot got Carlos Cavazo and Rudy Sarzo and built a band around that, then you have a couple of the guys from Metal Health. Maybe that is something that would be more viable to fans. But tons of bands do this. Tons of bands trade off the name with one or no original member. You just got to decide if it makes sense for you. I personally have always said, to me, for it to be a valid thing, and I don't mean this with any disrespect to any of these bands that some of the guys in it currently are friends, but to me, you've got to have some fabric of the original band. You've got to have one or two people that made the stuff, that were part of it, to make it feel like and make it valid that you're actually seeing that band. So that's one side of it. But that's a personal choice, and that's not going to stop, folks. As these artists get older, and as they lose members and they pass away, that is what the fight over ownership of the names are all about. Because whoever owns the name can put a version of the band out there with no original members and trade off of the name. Ricky Medlock, who plays in Leonard Skinner, who is the founding member of Blackfoot, for years has been putting out a version of Blackfoot with no original members. It happens everywhere. And for hardcore fans, they know about it, they sniff it out, they don't like it, they don't go. But there's plenty of promoters, there's plenty of state fairs, there's plenty of casinos that have no idea or don't care, and I can put the logo up on my ad mat, I'm going to put the logo up. They're buying logos. They don't know who's in the bands, who's not, what's real, what's not. Sometimes the agents are going to suppress that because they're trying to sell it. A fan walking through a casino sees a logo. Oh, I know that guy. I remember that song, and they're going to go in. Having no idea what, if any, version of the band remotely resembling the band that made the music that they loved is there. It's rampant. Not saying it's right, but it's rampant, and it's all about everybody just trying to sell these names. The band, I've said this repeatedly, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory sense, which it's sometimes people misinterpret it. But Foreigner laid the blueprint for this, folks. Foreigner set this example for the industry. All of these bands have followed and looked at what a Foreigner has done and are all attempting to do it. Some with success, some with no success. And what I mean by that is, by and large, in the last 15, 20 years, Mick Jones has not played the majority of the Foreigner dates. And when Mick Jones does not play in Foreigner, there is not one person on that stage who had anything to do with the classic Foreigner material you're hearing played. They do it remarkably well. They do good business. They sound great. Nobody's questioning the musicianship. But when Mick doesn't come out, there is nobody on the stage that had anything to do with the creation of those songs or playing them on the records that you hear all the time on classic rock radio. And when the business and these other artists saw Foreigner getting money and dates and tours and bookings doing that, the light bulbs went off in all of their heads. Can we do that? And I've said this consistently, and again, this is not a diss to Foreigner, but why Foreigner was able to do it and continues to do it so successfully is because Foreigner was not built on star personalities and rock star images. Foreigner was built and is unbelievably great rock songs. Sung ridiculously, amazingly great by Lou Gramm, written and produced and music by Mick Jones. And all respect to the other guys who played on those records. But sure, the band was built on Mick and Lou, but Mick is not a guitar hero, and Lou is not a pinup. So it was a very different thing. So my point is, nobody ever really knew who was in Foreigner, even when they were the original band. It was more about the songs, and sure, people knew it was Lou and Mick, but it wasn't built like that. It wasn't Tyler Perry, Roth, Eddie Van Halen, Jagger Richards, Freddie Mercury, like this peacock on stage with Queen. It was none of that. And that's why, because nobody really quite knew 40 years ago or about the guys. That's why now, same thing. Oh, it's Foreigner. I'm hearing the songs. They sound great. So many people in this business looked at that. I know this for a fact. You know how many artists I've talked to in the last 20 years, 30 years since Foreigner's been doing this? Well, Foreigner did it. How did they do it? How can we do it? Meaning, how can I stay home and put a version of a band using the name out, and I collect the money? Because the person who owns the name, even if they stay home, they're still getting paid because they own the operation. Mick Jones was on this show about 3 years ago, and I asked him when he was done, meaning never going out on the road again, would he want the band to still continue? And at that time, I was very surprised that he gave the answer no. We also had Rick Nielsen on this show from Cheap Trick a few years ago when Cheap Trick was getting ready to go out and tour with Foreigner, and Rick said on the air that in the contract when they toured, they insisted Mick Jones play the shows. Otherwise, Cheap Trick would get to close on nights that Mick didn't play. Because in Rick's mind, he didn't want Cheap Trick opening for what essentially at that point would be a tribute act. They laid the blueprint. They continue to lay the blueprint to do it. But what people fail to realize is the reason why they're so successful at it is because they were never built on star personalities to begin with. Now, the other problem he had is the price point, $80, which I agree is way, way high for a GA show, regardless of who's in the band in a club. And the only thing I can tell you about that is, and look, a lot of this stuff is going to cancel. And a lot of this stuff, I'm not saying that show, I don't know anything about that show, but you're going to see things like this, people try stuff like this, and it's going to cancel. But you understand, or it's going to happen, and there's going to be 4 people there. But you got to understand these artists are in a tough position to defend them a little bit. They have artists at the club level who make their living and pay their bills based on playing somewhere every weekend, week to week, have had a really, really rough year and counting. And they got to get resourceful and find a way to make some money in states they can do it in some way. And where there are capacity restrictions, you got to get 4 guys and maybe 3 or 4 crew guys on a plane or on a bus or in a van to go somewhere in this country to do a date for one show on a weekend, or maybe you piece together 2 shows. And then the club is told, well, you hold 500, but you can only sell 100. The only way the math works is if they can charge that price of a ticket. It's the only way the math works. It's the only way the promoter, if he feels he can sell 100 tickets and the band wants $6,000 or $7,000 to even leave the house. Okay, $80 ticket, $100, that's $8,000. I can cover the guarantee if I sell all the tickets. That's the only way it works. If you price the ticket at $25 or $30, which would be reasonable for a club show, and you sell 100 tickets and you make $3,000, but you got to pay no matter how many people show up, the band $6,000 plus expenses make it $10,000. The math doesn't work. You're going to see a lot of this going forward. There's going to be a lot of experimentation, and I don't blame anybody for doing it. They're testing the waters. They're seeing what they can do. But if you're asking a lot, and this is where I've been saying this perfect storm is coming, unfortunately, as far as touring. You're up against restricted capacity. So then you raise ticket prices up against people still might be afraid to come out because of the pandemic, up against people who also may not have had money for the last year. And yeah, they're dying to see a show, but they're not going to spend 80, let alone 30 right now because they don't have it. There's going to be a lot of this going on, folks, as we start up again. And it's hard to point blame and a finger at anybody because everyone's going to try their best to figure it out. But everybody's got a nut. You can't expect to see a national act without them at least being able to cover their nut to get there and maybe make a few $100 each in the night. And they're not going to do that unless they know they're getting a guaranteed X amount of money. And the promoter, if he's dealing with restrictions on capacity and he can't paper the show, remember that component of this too. During normal times, how many shows did we talk about at every level that people said, oh, the tickets, they gave them to me for free? Because they just wanted you in the building. They just wanted to fill the building so you buy the beer and all that. Can't do that right now. Can't paper shows. Because you got a capacity restriction. So the business is very much sideways right now and is going to be until full capacity come back. No restrictions. Ticket prices can come back to normal because you can sell the full venue. And if you can't sell the full venue, you're going to paper the hell out of it to make it look good. And those people are going to buy their beers for $20 a can. And you're going to make your money that way. But right now, that model doesn't work for the first time in a long time because of restrictions from the pandemic. It's a really complex thing. It's going to be an issue for a while. And it's just part of this. We're going to have to navigate our way out of it.
Thank you for tuning in, and please hit that like button. It's appreciated. Make sure that you subscribe for more rock-related content.